to go to the NBA. And, finally an elite team beats the Golden State Warriors. Not that I was wishing it or anything, but I mean, come on. The season was getting a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we needed something to be like, hey, they're not invincible. Granted, they were a little shorthanded. They didn't have Andre Iguodala, they didn't have Festus Ezeli, and they didn't have Andrew Bogut. But the fact of the matter is, they lost. They lost to a team that actually was a top 3 seed in either conference. Finally. But the Warriors, they were essentially, I never thought I'd say this, the Warriors were strapped up on Saturday night. I mean, the score was 79-87, went San Antonio's way. The Warriors shot 25% from 3-point range. I mean, they didn't even turn the ball over all that. I mean, they turned it over 10 times, but Steph Curry went 1 of 12 from 3. Mm-hmm. It was like a rough night for him shooting wise. He went 4 of 18 in general. He had 14 points. But the funny thing is, when you look on the San Antonio side of things, they didn't shoot the ball astronomically well either. I mean, they shot 38% from 3. They shot 41% from the field. So they didn't shoot all that well either, because both teams played great defensively. Mm-hmm. It's just that they just limited what the Warriors like to do best, and that's shoot threes. So guys, what do you think about this this win for San Antonio? Is it a big deal or not a big deal? Colin, let's start with you. What do you think?
The Spurs beat the Warriors, and we all been hoping that, well, I haven't been hoping, but we've been wanting somebody to be able to show them, like you said, they're not invincible. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think this win is a big deal. Mm-hmm. One, because they didn't have all their players. Andre Iguodala, Andrew Bogut, and Festus Ezeli.
Festus Ezeli, yeah.
They were out of the game, so that definitely hurts some of that depth. Also, I feel like Steph Curry might have just had an off night, just to not be hitting shots like that. Mm-hmm. And then also the fact that the Spurs weren't as productive on offense as well. But the funny thing is, I guess it also contributes to the good defense that Danny Green and who else? Tony Parker. Man,
it was a great team defense.
Mm-hmm. Danny Green and Tony Parker trying to shut down Steph Curry. I think they did a great job. And I just feel like some of those shots, I feel like some of his shots still could have went in some situations, but it was just, he just won't feeling it. So even they said themselves that they weren't thinking that this was such a big deal because they didn't have all their players. And then next time they see them, they probably wouldn't be sure if they'd win as well. So I feel like if they just don't acknowledge it as such a big win, then why should we?
All right, Rashad, what do you think?
When you see this loss, a lot of people like to say, yeah, that's what happens when Steph Curry and Klay Thompson don't hit the shots. Well, obviously that's what happens with anybody when the best player doesn't score on the team. They're going to lose. It's the best players on the team. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at it like they had off nights. Yeah, I mean, their defense was good, but at the same time, San Antonio barely won when their 2-star players didn't score. And I mean, yeah, I can credit their defense. I can credit San Antonio's defense, but at the same time, Steph Curry still had a lot of Steph Curry open shots. Mm-hmm. Technically, what was open to him, not open to many other people, but open to him. He had a lot of those shots still. He just couldn't hit them. And every night they're not going to hit it. They're not going to go on a shooting slump like this because they're just too great of shooters to both of them be in a slump like this. It's not going to be like that every night. So I mean, you can give San Antonio credit, but I mean, it doesn't change the fact that they still got waxed earlier. So, and I mean, everybody was like, Tim Duncan makes an impact, but I mean, at the same time, Steph Curry shot 12 threes. He only shot 6 layups and stuff. So it's like he wouldn't have really changed the game really that much of the other game because Steph Curry's still gonna shoot his threes, Klay Thompson's still gonna shoot his threes. They're just more efficient. So I'm looking at it like it doesn't really show anything for either team. It's just one game. Both teams strapped each other up. Notice the score is 87-79.
They still got 2 more competitions.
Yep. So I'm just like, nah, it's not gonna happen again. You're not gonna hold Steph to 1 for 12. You're not gonna hold Klay Thompson for 7 for 20 for the game. So I'm just saying, it's not gonna happen again.
I'm not sure. Are you? I don't think you're giving the Spurs their credit here. I mean you're making it sound like it was the Warriors more so missing the shots than the Spurs actually playing great defense. The Spurs
played great defense, but at the same time, Steph Curry still got Steph Curry open shots.
He did, but there were a lot of his shots were contested. I mean, those are
they're always contested.
He had I'd say about a portion of his shot. Like there was always. I mean, Danny Green blocked the first Steph Curry shot attempt of the season, and this isn't a big man that blocked. It was another guard. I mean, he shot over big dudes and everything. They were all over him. Like they were running him off the 3-point line entirely. They were willing to sacrifice inside presence. But the thing is, they had the inside presence. That's because they forced it that way. I mean, I look at this stat that's interesting to me because I saw it said the first matchup that they had was the fastest pace that the Spurs have played, which was 105.2 possessions per game. While this game was the slowest Golden State has played with 90.2 possessions per game, and it's the slowest pace that Golden State's played all season. So I look at that, and San Antonio actually played their game this time. And I mean, they ran Steph off the 3-point line. They ran Clay off the 3-point line. At first, those guys were trying to force the issue with the threes from the 3-point line. Then Steph started realizing, hey man, they're just gonna be all over me no matter. And the bigs played great defense on them, coming off of screens and everything. Like LaMarcus Aldridge would be out there playing them tight and everything. I remember there was one play where I think LaMarcus Aldridge, it should have been called a kick ball, but he kicked the ball and the ball rolled to like that half court. And he started to back up. Then he was like, "Oh man, Steph Curry!" So he runs out to him to contest him from that deep of range. So I feel as though, I mean, yeah, there were some shots. There were a couple of shots that I'm like, okay, Steph normally hits that. Like there was like an offensive rebound, I believe, in like the last 30 seconds. I went to Steph, and he was wide open. He missed it. And there's another one like with like 2 or 3 minutes left to go that he missed when he was wide open. But I feel as though a lot of it has to do with the great defense that San Antonio played on them. I mean, I think I saw another, like they out-rebounded them tremendously, and the fact that Tim Duncan took it upon himself to be willing to come off the bench for just the 3rd time in his career played a big part in it too. Because when Golden State came out with the small lineup first with Brandon Rush, they countered back with starting Boris Diaw, someone who can spread the floor by shooting threes, but who's also a big body, but he can also keep up with smaller guys. So that's how San Antonio countered that. And I even looked at it also with the defense that they played on them. Kawhi Leonard wasn't even the primary defender on Steph. He primarily guarded Draymond Green. And in the 46 possessions that he guarded Draymond Green, it only resulted in 5 assist opportunities for Draymond Green, and he only had 11 points. So they pretty much played lockdown defense all around. They didn't get out of position with their defense. They did everything. They got over screens and everything. So they played defensively sound. I mean, San Antonio even had their mistakes in this game. I mean, they had 17 turnovers. I mean, I remember I was watching it in the first half. I was like, man, they are playing sloppy. So as much as we can say that, I mean, and it's not like San Antonio shot all that great either. I mean, they shot what? Kawhi Leonard was 5 of 14. Marcus Aldridge was 11 of 25. Boris Diaw was balling. He shot 6 of 7. Tony Parker was 2 of 8. Danny Green was 4 of 10.
Which shows a good defense of them. But if you look at it like this, you look at Boris Diaw and Marcus Aldridge, you had Harrison Barnes on you.
Yeah, but that's an advantage. That's
exactly
that's their advantage.
And that's why Boris Diaw was that efficient. But LaMarcus Aldridge have no excuse for going 11 for 25 when you have Harrison Barnes on you.
But
he's one of the most best power forwards in the game, and you're going 11 for 25.
But he shot 11 shots with an actual big on him. He was 4 of 11 when there was an actual big on him. So I mean, when he had a smaller player on him, he shot over 50%. So
yeah, but if you think, I'm saying
he actually did his thing against Harrison Barnes, but it's whenever they put
so
I'm
saying when Festus Ezeli and Andrew Bogut come back, Andrew Bogut is one of the best big defenders they have.
He is, but that does play a part in that win. Right but if how was it a red flag? Okay, see, here's the thing. That's why they said they're not going to get too caught up in the win because of the fact that those guys weren't here. Yeah, exactly. But you also realize you played great defense because it's not like the Warriors don't go to a small ball lineup, and you guarded that small ball lineup with your bigs on the floor. So regardless, you saw how you were going to guard the small ball lineup, even as Festus, because that lineup at some point is going to be in the game. Just Andre Iguodala is going to be in there at some point. Now that's the bigger factor to me. It was Andre Iguodala being out rather than those two. I would say one of the bigs being out was a big deal, but Andre Iguodala was the biggest one because he's normally the one that's in the death ball lineup. Yeah. But even if you put Andre Iguodala in there, I mean, he's most likely guarding Kawhi Leonard, who didn't shoot efficiently already as it was, but the man shoots over 50, he shoots about 51% on the season. So
I don't think Andre Iguodala will put up those 8-9 points they needed for the win.
Yeah. Oh, and not for the win. But see, here's the deal. Like, Brandon Rush didn't play bad. The only thing you take away from Brandon Rush from what he did was he wasn't as efficient as defense as Andre Iguodala would have been. But I mean, as a team, they still play great defense. But as you know, as as a person you want, you're going to want Andre Iguodala in the game.
Yeah.
But Brandon Rush didn't actually play that bad in the position.
Brandon Rush didn't play bad, but I mean, he was just out there to space the floor practically. I mean,
He
because
was out there
Draymond
for
Green was the
plays.
primary guarder
Yeah.
on LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard.
That's a
He
bad
guarded them,
matchup.
and that's their best defender. So
That's a
he,
bad-
yeah, you know what I'm saying. So even Andre Iguodala is there. I mean, he's their best defender, and he guarded Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge for most of the game. I mean, I saw one play, he plucked Kawhi Leonard clean. It was mean, but I mean, Kawhi Leonard got him back, but it was mean. But I try to give the Spurs I just want to give the Spurs their credit.
I mean,
because,
yeah,
like,
you can
okay,
give
so-
the Spurs their credit, but I feel like it's not that.
I feel like it's just
big.
because when Golden State won the other time without Tim Duncan, we hadn't seen this game yet, but
Mhm.
everybody's willing to say, "Oh, Golden State's ready to run away with it," and we all know Tim Duncan makes a difference. So we're
Yeah.
talking about these guys, and Tim. It's not like these guys. It's not like Tim Duncan is Andrew Bogut or Festus Ezeli. Tim Duncan is the primary defender. He makes it. He actually can score from the post, unlike Andrew Bogut. I mean, it's Tim Duncan. And we were acting like, oh yeah, regardless if he's in the lineup, they're gonna win. Well, why can't we say the same for them? Only player I'll say that makes the astronomical difference is Andre Iguodala and maybe Festus Ezeli. Because Andre, I mean, I feel like sometimes they play better with Festus than Andrew Bogut.
I mean, I think they play better with Festus as an offensive standpoint, but not as a defensive standpoint. Because I mean, Andrew Bogut, I'm still calling this man Andrew Bogut for years now. But I mean, I can't take away from what he does around the rim.
Stephen A. too.
He calls him Andrew Bogut as well.
I feel like Stephen A. is the one they've been calling that joint for a minute.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard him call it.
Yeah, Stephen A. says it on the first take all the time. He says it.
Now I don't sound creative anymore.
Yeah, Stephen
I mean, you just changed one letter.
yeah.
It's still, but it's because I thought I was who started this show. I guess I didn't.
Stephen A. been saying on
That's
first take since his
sad.
Milwaukee days, bro.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well then that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, yes, it's back to
for
Andrew
such
Bogut.
for such a high draft pick, he's been saying that he hasn't panned out for a good while. But here's the thing. So when we look at this, so as a morale standpoint, if the San Antonio Spurs would have lost this game, how do you guys feel like that would have affected the morale as a morale standpoint? If you guys don't think it was a big deal, how would you, especially with that home game winning streak? I think now it's at 34, 35 for this season. How do you guys think that would have affected them from a morale standpoint if you guys don't think it was a big deal?
I mean, it definitely would have hurt them for the home game winning streak because they've been going off at home, and if they didn't beat them at home, they probably would have just crushed them. But I mean, beating them at home, I mean, the way they beat them, well, not the how many points or whatever that they scored more than them. I guess they feel like that they could have did better, but because all their pieces weren't there, they couldn't. I guess it wasn't the best Warriors team. You see what I'm saying? Going up against them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This game meant more to the Spurs than it did the Warriors. You have the record, but
even though they haven't won there in over since Tim Duncan was a senior at Wake Forest.
Who hasn't won? What do you mean?
The Warriors haven't won at San Antonio since 1996, I believe.
It's still more to the Spurs because you have the record. Yeah, that's one X game you shouldn't have lost because you're fighting for the record. But at the same time, the Spurs have something to prove because they went in there and got dubbed in Oracle Arena. So you can't come here and if you get dubbed here at home, then you're looking in the playoffs like, well, they can easily beat us at any place. It doesn't matter where they play at. So I'm looking at it like we have to win this game at home more so than them winning to keep the record alive. So you look at something like that, and like we have to make sure we can beat this team at home. Yeah, they have one more home game. We got to make sure we can win all our games at home and go there and win at least one game to win the series.
See that I agree with that because I do believe that it was one of those things that even regardless of them being at home, even if this game was played in Golden State, it hurts to lose a game, back-to-back games against a team that everybody is. I mean, they're only 3 games behind this team. They're 59-10, and the Warriors are 62-7. So everybody's looking at it, and they still think they can catch them. I mean, with 14 games left to play, I mean that's difficult to do, but they still feel as though they can catch them for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. So for a team that's sitting there, and you're looking like, well, we're kind of getting overlooked here, while these guys are being put on this. I mean, because they are going for the record. These guys are getting put on this pedestal and we're not seen as good. And for some time, it didn't seem as though people were going to regard them as good until Oklahoma City essentially tailed off a little bit. Nobody was even putting the Spurs in this conversation, really. So I do, and especially with your home win streak, I feel like they're like you both said, there was a little bit extra to it because of the fact that people are sitting there saying, well, you're gonna they're pretty much gonna beat you in every way possible. You went into their house, you couldn't end their home game winning streak. They're gonna come into your house, end your home game win streak, end their streak of losing in San Antonio, and then get another game of separation between y'all. So I definitely do feel as though this game was a high stakes game for the Spurs. And I mean, Steph Curry before the game did say that it did mean something to the Warriors because I mean, losing out of place, because him personally he's played San Antonio plenty of times, and him personally having lost so many times against San Antonio. I mean, he said he hasn't enjoyed it, and he said he would have liked to have gotten the win, but like he said, they'll be all right. But going on to the next topic,